to the Cleveland Browns. So they make a splash immediately. The top of the draft, trading back from 2 to 5. We'd hit that point where pretty much everybody was mocking Travis Hunter to them, second overall. And it sounds like they 100% would have taken him had they not gotten the trade offer that they did. But the Jags trade up to 2, take Travis. They drop back to 5 and still pick up one of the best players in this class in Mason Graham to pair next to Myles Garrett on that defensive line. So, what were your immediate thoughts from that trade and then their class?
Listen, man, we're not doing grades, we're not doing rankings. It's our first year doing this, so we're trying to figure out if we want to do that kind of stuff. But if I had to rank it, I might rank Cleveland's draft as my favorite in the entire NFL, man. It's the first of all, the trade back. You have to start with that because again, I'll add, yes, you could have had Travis Hunter, and I love Travis Hunter the player. I think Travis Hunter is going to be great in the NFL, and so I would understand why people don't want to pass that up. But you're getting a first round pick next year, and you're adding a blue chip player. Like they still, and that's a big piece of it, man. Because if they had to trade back into let's say the teens to make this happen, and they get one of those like maybe high upside edge rushers, but don't aren't blue chip guys. There was no blue chip guys left at that point. So, but you still come away with Mason Graham, which is probably third or fourth best player in this class. And you have the Jaguars first round pick next year, which could be a top 10 pick. And then, it continued, dude. I just like the Schlesinger pick. Yes, I get it's a linebacker second round, but a lot of people viewed this linebacker class as a two linebacker class, man. And they came away with the second best linebacker. So yeah, right off the bat, their first two picks, that's how I felt about it.
Completely agree. I mean, you and I are both massive fans of trading back. I mean, at the end of the day, the draft is a numbers game. There's players you kind of know are going to be good, but for the most part, like you mentioned earlier, it's all projection. You are hoping that these players pan out. So, just statistically speaking, the more at bats you get at that, the more likely it is. And that's not to say that drafting a bunch of guys in the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth round necessarily equals more starters or more stars on your team. But you definitely increase the odds of that happening. So anytime you can trade back, always a big fan of that. And when you pick up an extra first specifically, you only drop back 2 or 3 spots, and you still get one of the blue chip players in this class. And then you pick up the first for next year that most likely will be pretty good. Um, it's hard to say with the Jags for sure. New coach, new GM, who knows what'll happen? But you get an extra first, and you still walk away with Mason Graham. So hard to feel bad about that. And pairing him with Myles Garrett, I'm just excited to see that. That's going to be fun to watch as just a fan of the NFL.
I agree,
Um,
dude. I mean, listen, Mason Graham and Myles Garrett together. I mean, that's terrifying, dude. It's gonna be good right away, too. I can assure you that because you have Myles Garrett. I mean, Myles Garrett's the best edge rusher in the NFL, and if Mason Graham is just solid, it's gonna be good. Like, and he's gonna be better than solid. He again was one of the very few blue chip players in this class. And then I just think the good process continued, man. A lot of
yeah,
people don't like this draft because the doubling up at quarterback. And listen, I love doubling up at quarterback. You don't have a franchise quarterback. You're still dealing with this Deshaun Watson thing and the contract and the lack of draft capital you had over the last few years because of the trade. I mean, again, listen, it's not a bold take to say this is the worst move in NFL history, and you have to rebuild this team because of it. I mean, they have buried themselves in a pretty deep hole because of that deal. And one way to come out of it, dude, is finding a franchise quarterback. And again, just to your point, dude, more swings at the bat, more darts at the dartboard is better. You're more likely to hit the more you take at it. So, and it was surprising that they took Gabriel before Shadur, but they got the consensus second best quarterback in this class in the fifth round. And there's a lot of Shadur debate going on right now. And I get it. Like, he was awful in the interviews. He was. All the reports are saying that. So that's why he fell. It makes a lot of sense why he fell. But you took a fifth round shot at him, Dakota. So it's like, even if he never works out, he never plays a down for the Browns. How many fifth round picks work out in the NFL? It's very few, man. Like, very few of those players actually go on to make an impact. And we're talking about a guy who could completely change the franchise. And that's a fact. Whether you hate Shadur or not, a franchise quarterback, an elite level quarterback, can completely change the trajectory of your team.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've touched on the Gabriel Shadur thing a good bit, and at the end of the day, I think it could be a blessing to have had the situation fall the way that it did. A lot of people have said the same thing, but now that you've drafted him in the fifth round, there may be a little bit more drama that comes with that you have to deal with. But at the same time, it's now easier to walk away from it as well. He's a fifth round pick. They get cut in training camp and in the preseason all the time. So you kind of have the ability to lay down the law immediately to be no nonsense. Like play football here and you can make the team. You could potentially become our quarterback. And now he can go out there and compete with Dylan Gabriel. So I completely agree. I mean, doubling up at quarterback, they're taking the swings. They're trying to figure this out, and I think the process is sound. And they're different quarterbacks too. Gabriel's a bit more. He's sneaky athletic, honestly. That term that gets thrown around a lot, but he's got more of an arm than Shadur does. And then with the rest of the class, Schlesinger again. Yeah, it's different with the Demetrius Knight thing because you didn't, he was the second consensus second. Demetrius was third, but the gap there was substantial.
Exactly.
Where Schlesinger wasn't as much of a reach at the time that they took him. And then, doubling up at running back is probably, I do love both of the running backs, but it's probably something I wouldn't. It's tough because I do love the players in their class, but it's one of those where, people have talked about this a lot. If you just reordered when they were taken, I think you'd feel way better about it too. Like it'd be one of those things that would have broke the like mock draft sims where it's just like an A plus.
Exactly.
But the order is just fascinating.
Because you were never in those mock draft sims, you were never getting Shadur in the fifth round. You just weren't. That wasn't going to happen. And I wonder with the running backs because I agree with you, dude. Taking two running backs in a class doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now for this team, it might because they don't have a lot of running back depth at all. Like they needed a starter and they also need depth. But I wonder if they just love Dylan Sampson. Like they took Junkins and they just like, listen, like we didn't expect Sampson to be left in this at the fourth round at this point. Let's just take him because it's just good value. We think he's a good football player. That's very likely as well. And then we got to touch on Harold Fanning as well, dude. I mean, Harold Fanning is probably, dude, I mean, outside of the two top tight ends, this is by far, in my opinion, the highest upside tight end in the entire class. And that's kind of the difference between, like, I like high upside guys if it's like one per class. Like they took Harold Fanning in this class, and yes, Harold Fanning, he has question marks. He played at a small school. He had production at the small school. He just played at a small school. He just, but dude, like if that hits in the third round, getting a starting tight end potentially in the future in the third round, I just absolutely love it, man. I just love everything about this class. I thought it was great process. And listen, if you want to nitpick, it's like the positional value in the second round. Like they left some good stuff on the table in the second round. I'm not gonna lie. Taking Schlesinger and Junkins, like you have to mention that. They could have got some of those elite prospect corners we were talking about, or some of the edge rushers available. But overall, man, just looking at this draft, I'm just like, I just love it from a process standpoint. And you have to add in, this is like when we talk about drafts next season, right, Dakota? We have to talk about, well, part of this season's draft is next year's first rounder for the Jags. Like that has to be built into that equation. So overall, man, if it's not my favorite draft, it's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, it is tough to play the what if card with it. Because if you do walk away this 33rd, 36th, they still have a bit of a need at receiver. It's kind of surprising they didn't draft any. And Luther Burden was there. Just switching things up, how you feel. What if they had taken Burden at 33 and like Ezraku at 36 or something and build out the D-line, or grab like Benjamin Morrison or one of the other top corners that were still on the board then, like a Trey Amos. But overall, and I completely agree on Harold Fanning. It's funny because he's like one of the, like almost opposites from the high upside in terms of where it comes from athleticism, where his comes from he was insanely productive, but at Bowling Green. And his athleticism is okay. But the guy can play football. And he had like a single season, he like broke tight end records in college football last season from a receiving perspective. So definitely has the opportunity to plug in and immediately play alongside of David Njoku. And compete for opportunities. Because, I sent it to you earlier today, but man, that 2017 class, they're not very young anymore. So David
Yeah.
Njoku's also getting
Exactly.
up there in age.
That's what I'm saying. You
Uh,
have to replace guys like that at some point, and tight ends tend to fall off a cliff pretty quick, dude. So, and I just like, yeah, part of it is I like these players, but again, I just think it was good process, dude. The doubling up at quarterback, the trade back, and they still got a blue chip guy. Like at the very worst in this class, dude, you just came away with a starting running back and a blue chip player in Mason Graham and the Jags first rounder next year, and potentially your franchise quarterback.
Completely agree. So to end in the Browns, I think we both know the answer to this favorite pick. I mean, it just you can't beat the value of Shedeur in the 5th round. You just can't.
You can't, dude. I totally agree. And he's a polarizing player right now, especially amongst the fan base, the NFL fan base. But in the 5th round, that's a no brainer, dude. I thought it was a no brainer in the 3rd round. Like him getting past the 2nd round to me was just nuts. He's probably a 2nd round level player. But since
Yeah.
it's the QB position, like I would totally understand overdrafting him in the 1st. But he went to the 5th, man. Like again, there's no risk in it. There's no risk in it at all. Like you said, you can cut him in the offseason before he even plays a snap for the Browns, and it doesn't matter.
Yep. Completely agree. So that is the Cleveland Browns 2025 class.